All right, we're going to take a look at one of Aldatov's main setups. And really what it's looking like to me is a half a slide by, where he doesn't really even try to ever slide the guy by all the way through, but he just uses it to attack the guy's leg. So there's a couple things to notice in here. The first one is that the weight shift he uses is always from front to back and then back into the opponent. Alright, so what we're going to see is the weight shift into his back leg, and then as he continues through, back into his front leg to attack. Alright, so that's the first little piece. Alright, so that weight shift back to front and then back weight shift is going to get opponent pulled around, and especially if it's his back leg he's attacking, he needs to get that leg around there. You see him weight shift back to front. Alright, now the next little piece, which goes hand in hand with this weight shift, is what his shoulders are doing. Alright, so as he starts to weight shift back to front, we're going to see his shoulders get stacked almost at the very end of this weight shift. So he continues to shift. Before he starts to move back into the opponent, his shoulders are almost right over top of one another. So they're almost like stacked. And his head follows this position to pull this opponent and get that weight shift. Now, his shoulders go stacked, and to get them back square to attack, he's going to roll his inside one back under and in. And then his other one is going to roll back over and down. Alright, so together, there's a back and forward rocking motion, and then kind of a shoulder roll over, and then back under rocking motion. So he's away, shoulder starts to dip, shoulders get stacked, he starts to move back into the opponent, and then shoulders start to roll back underneath. And then all of those two things together generate this kind of off balance to pull the opponent into him. All right. So he pulls the opponent in to catch his leg. All right. And then just the last little piece he's doing is snaking over top, just like a slide by, hooking right above the opponent's elbow to carry this arm through. All right, and the shoulder turn also allows him to clear space for his head away from the opponent's arm to go back underneath. So as he pulls it through, his head's gonna roll underneath, and he's got space to attack their leg. All right, so those are really the three main things that I would focus on if I was doing this. The back and forward weight shift, and then this shoulder roll, at least it's what I'm calling it. And then obviously he needs something to grab to pull the guy through, so he snakes over top and hooks their elbow. All right, now let's compare this setup to Sidakov's slide by, and we can take a look at why I think they're pretty similar movements to attack. All right, so we'll just take a look at the obvious thing first. All right, both guys, both opponents have kind of an inside tie position, and then Aldatov and Sidakov are both snaked over top. All right. Now, they're both reaching to hook above elbow, and they're both trying to pull this arm through. All right, so that's the first thing. All right, the next thing is still this kind of weight shift that I was talking about earlier, where Sidakov continues his weight shift down to pull the guy all the way through, whereas Aldatov goes back into the guy after. So here we actually see pretty similar steps. So if we notice Sidakov's back foot and Aldatov's back foot, they're gonna step and start to shift weight that direction. All right, and they've both started to lean their head down and outside their hip. Shoulders are starting to be stacked. Shoulders are starting to be stacked. Now, where it starts to differ is right here. Sidakov uses his backhand to continue to pull the guy through. Right, he continues his twist back across, whereas Aldatov uses his backhand to try to attack the leg, or here, if it's being controlled, he'll take the slide by hand to it. All right, so they both pull. One's attacked the leg, and one is attacked around the opponent. The one last thing to notice here is the direction their chest is facing when they start to lean. So Sidakov starts to lean, and he's going to continue to pull his chest away from the opponent, where Aldatov continues to face the opponent with his chest. And so chest starts to pull away. Aldatov's is going to start to go back in. So you can see Sidakov turned open, and Aldatov rolled back underneath. Right, there's some slight differences in when he's doing this setup to the opponent's lead leg. Right, so the last few clips have been to the opponent's back leg, and he gets a big pull and makes him step it forward. Right, this one is to the opponent's lead leg. So everything he does just has to be a little, or it's allowed to be a little shorter, a little tighter. All right, so here we're gonna see opponent's leading the leg he wants to attack. All right, and all the same kind of things are happening. It's gonna be a smaller shift outside and roll, and back to the leg just a little quicker. So small shift, and then right back into the leg. In these next two clips, we're going to take a look at how he's kind of disguising this hand coming over to this little slide by setup. All right. I mean, obviously, if he just hangs out in this arm snake position, people are gonna know that it's coming. All right. So he uses a little bit of an over tie snap to start his slide by setup. So here we see his hand come over top. All right. And this snap also starts to get the opponent's weight forward just a little bit. Start that lean, make this leg step forward even more as he transitions his hand to the inside. All right, so one more time real quick. Hand over top, snaps through straight into this little side by setup. All right, similar thing here. His right hand is going to come over top. Snaps kind of through, pushes his opponent's head right into this little slide by setup. And here we see his head go outside, which is fine. There's a couple different options for finishes, and it kind of depends on what the opponent does anyway. All right, we can take a look at some finish variations. And the most common ones he gets anyway, through a couple clips. It's either going to be on his feet, or on a knee, or head outside, pretty much are the kind of options here. So let's jump back to the beginning real quick. Same idea. Here you see him kind of go over tie and then snake in, pull. All right, stays on his feet. It's probably ideal. I would imagine that if he had the option, this is what he would do every time. Here we're going to see his head go outside. All right, so he rolls, pulls. Now, kind of see the opponent's hips go up and away, which is going to make his head have some space when he goes to turn it back inside. And because of this head space, he's going to end up head outside, which is perfectly fine. He just adjusted to the opponent's defense. All good finishes do that. And then this is one of my favorite ones. All right, same kind of pull, rolls in. Him and his opponent are kind of finger fighting here. All right, so he pulls as this guy goes to defend and sprawl. He rolls his head all the way out the other side, shoulders in decent position on his hip, and all he's got to do is drive with his head back across. So here we even see him do the over tie into slide by, his over tie into this elbow catch, pull, and actually there's like 3 shoulder rolls here. Take a look at them. So he goes shoulder roll down and away, shoulder roll back underneath, and then shoulder roll kind of up and back again to get this angle on his head outside.